Welcome to This Explainer. I'm so thrilled you're joining us today. I'm going to ask you to step into my world for just a little bit. You see, as a sommelier, I spend my life tasting, analyzing, and searching for wines that don't just taste good, but actually tell a real story of survival and triumph. And today, we're going on a serious sensory journey into the world's southernmost viticultural frontier. We're talking about Central Otago, New Zealand. So if you happen to have a glass handy, pour yourself a splash and let's explore the absolute edge of the winemaking world together.
It's a pretty dramatic paradox, isn't it? I mean, when we think of fine, elegant Pinot Noir, our minds usually jump straight to the gently rolling, sun-dappled hills of Burgundy. We definitely don't picture snow-capped alpine peaks and freezing glacial winds. Yet, Central Otago is a place where viticulture borders on the absolutely impossible. It's an environment so extreme, so unbelievably harsh, that vines really shouldn't even survive here, let alone produce wines of internationally acclaimed finesse and power. So you have to wonder, how exactly does this freezing environment yield such a masterpiece?
Okay, let's dive into this. We are firmly anchored at 45 degrees south latitude. This is quite literally where the vines meet the snow. It's the locus extremis of the winemaking world. But the geography here actually offers this incredible hidden blessing. The colossal chain of the Southern Alps acts as this massive, impenetrable wall. It creates a rain shadow that completely blocks the torrential rains and those harsh maritime winds coming off the Tasman Sea. This isolation is absolutely crucial. It's what makes Central Otago the only true continental climate in all of New Zealand, essentially protecting the vines in this dry, intensely luminous bubble.
And that true continental climate brings us to the very first secret of this terroir, a brutal, almost violent diurnal temperature swing. During the incredibly short summer, these vines are just blasted by high-altitude, intense solar radiation. We are talking scorching alpine days that push the grapes to incredible phenolic ripeness. That's what builds up those deep, dark fruit flavors. But the very second the sun drops, the temperature just absolutely plummets. These freezing glacial nights act like a physiological handbrake. They shut down the vine's metabolism entirely and literally lock in that vibrant, mouth-watering malic acidity. This scaly whiplash is exactly what builds the wine's incredible tension.
Now, of course, this extreme cold is also the region's greatest existential threat. Spring and autumn frosts can annihilate an entire vintage in a matter of hours. To survive out here, viticulture looks a lot less like farming and way more like a militaristic battle. When a frost hits, the entire valley erupts into action. Massive wind machines roar to life to mix the air layers. Sprinklers actually coat the vines in water, using the latent heat of freezing to insulate the delicate buds at exactly 0 degrees. And when it gets really desperate, they literally call in the air cavalry. Helicopters hover over the vineyards in the dead of night, using their downwash to physically push warmer air back down to the vines. It is a monumental struggle just to survive. And you know, that struggle continues right beneath the surface. The soils here are a harsh, unforgiving mix of wind-blown glacial dust called loess, which sits right on top of fractured schist rock. This isn't your fertile, easy-to-farm soil. It drains incredibly fast and offers almost zero nutrients. But here's the thing, that is exactly what we want. This poor soil severely limits the vigor of the vine. It forces the roots to drill deep down into the bedrock just to find water, and that keeps the grape berries tiny and incredibly concentrated. When you get this in the glass, this schist translates to a very specific, signature tactile minerality. It's this amazing sensation of crushed rock and graphite right on your palate. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the human element. It's all about the specific genetic material that was chosen to conquer this landscape. Central Otago relies heavily on Dijon clones imported straight from Burgundy to provide that classic floral elegance and precision. But then, we have the Abel clone, affectionately known down there as the gumboot clone. Legend actually has it that these cuttings were smuggled out of the legendary Domaine de la Romanée Conti inside a gumboot. They were eventually confiscated by a New Zealand customs officer named Abel, who then propagated them. Blending those refined Dijon clones with the wild, dark, rustic depth of the Abel clone is exactly what builds the three-dimensional complexity that makes these wines so legendary today. All right, let's move into the really fun part, the sommelier's sensory analysis. When you pour a glass of Central Otago Pinot Noir, the very first thing that strikes you is the visual depth. This does not look like your typical pale, translucent Pinot. Because the UV light is so intensely pure and piercing at this altitude, the grapes react defensively. They actually grow significantly thicker skins just to protect their seeds from sunburn. And thicker skins mean a massive extraction of anthocyanins, those are the color pigments, which results in this deeply concentrated, brilliant ruby hue that promises a seriously robust wine.
Now bring the glass up to your nose. The aromatic profile is an absolute explosion of place. You immediately get this core of incredibly pure, sun-drenched dark cherry and black plum, and it's all interwoven with exotic spices like clove and star anise. But the absolute hallmark of this terroir, the scent that tells the sommelier they are blind tasting Central Otago, is a distinct herbal note of wild thyme. This thyme grows wildly between the schist rocks all over the region, and its volatile oils literally infuse the vineyard air and the wine itself with this beautiful, savory, earthy edge. It's just phenomenal.
So the crucial point is how this all translates to the palate when you finally take a sip. The taste is a masterclass in dynamic tension. The initial attack is rich and generous with that sweet, concentrated dark fruit. But almost instantly, it's met by a chalky, mineral grip from those schist soils, plus a laser-like mouthwatering acidity that was preserved by those freezing glacial nights we talked about. It doesn't finish heavy or jammy at all. Instead, it finishes with a long, incredibly clean, saline minerality that literally leaves you immediately reaching for another sip. But it's also absolutely vital to know that Central Otago isn't just one single flavor profile. It's this brilliant mosaic of micro-terroirs. For instance, if you taste a wine from Gibbston, which is the highest and coldest subregion, you'll find a wine of extreme nervous tension, lighter in body, and marked by really vibrant red fruit. But if you move down to Bannockburn, the protected golden heart of the region, the wines become much warmer, showing powerful structure and immense aging potential. And then, if you go to Bendigo, the hottest, rockiest subsector, you'll encounter the absolute heavyweights of the region. These are dark, dense, brooding Pinot Noirs with heavy tannins that really demand some time in the cellar.
Now, before we talk about food, I want to share a critical sommelier secret with you about serving this specific wine. You want to serve it between 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. That's around 57 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Because of that intense solar radiation we discussed earlier, these wines often carry a slightly higher alcohol content. If you serve them at a warm room temperature, that alcohol becomes highly volatile. It will literally crush those delicate aromas of wild thyme and cherry, making the wine taste hot and disjointed. So serve it slightly chilled, in a nice, wide bowl burgundy glass. That allows the wine to breathe and traps those ethereal aromatics perfectly. And this brilliantly illustrates how we actually bring this wine to the table. Central Otago Pinot Noir is a phenomenal food wine. The absolute classic pairing is free-range, local Otago lamb. Mechanically speaking, the laser-like acidity of the wine cuts right through the rich, silky fat of the lamb, while the wine's wild thyme notes perfectly echo the local herbal rubs. It's a match made in heaven. Or try a rich duck confit served with a cherry reduction. It mirrors the wine's dark fruit profile flawlessly. And hey, don't forget the region's stunning, razor-sharp white wines. A dry or off-dry local Riesling is actually a sommelier's secret weapon for balancing the spice, heat, and complex textures of Asian fusion cuisine. Central Otago is absolute proof that sometimes the most magnificent elegance is forged in the most brutal extremes imaginable. It's a real testament to the resilience of the vine and the sheer willpower of the winemakers who brave the frost and the stone year after year. So you now know the geography, the legendary clones, the science of the diurnal swing, and the sommelier's secrets to serving it perfectly. The only thing left to decide is this: whether you seek out the tense, high-wire elegance of Gibbston or the dark, muscular power of Bendigo, what culinary masterpiece will you pair with your first taste of the extreme? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, cheers.